Hello, friends. Sorry it's been a while.
Forever? It felt like forever.
And I am very happy to be back, but I have got some things to catch up on. So I've got 3 different VRs I would like to do, 2 of which they've already done the prize giveaway, but who cares? I still want to support the other channels in the community.
I'm supporting my community.
So let's get started. Stick around. Hello, friends. I am John, and I am the 3D 80s kid. For the first VR, it's going to be for Cases Loaded with Dan Wilson. So Dan's channel has just recently exploded. He was originally going to do a VR for 600 subscribers, which then later became 700 subscribers, and ended up turning into a 1,000 subscriber VR. And he is almost on his way to 1.5K at this point. It's just crazy the growth he's had.
Exactly. He's become a goddamn household name.
So anyways, his subject for the VR was members of the 600 or 700 Homer Club, which, was associated with his 600 or 700 subscriber count VR. But nevertheless, I'm happy to do a VR for him on that subject, as, I am a big fan of who was the second member of the 600 Homer Club. Probably would have been the second member of the 700 Homer Club, and possibly the all-time home run leader for a stretch of time if he hadn't missed 2 years to military service. It's none other than Willie Mays.
What? Willie Mays?
Who I've got a whole case of cards dedicated to him. I have his entire 55 to 73 Topps run, as well as a few of the different alternative cards to fill up a whole case of 30. And rather than going through all his cards, I decided to pick what are my 3 favorites at this point after hours of staring at that case. And at number 3 in my countdown of favorites is this 66 Topps. And it's, the design of 66 is nothing special.
I know, it's bland.
But for me, it's all about the photo and how happy Willie actually looks. Because one unfortunate thing with the Willie Mays run is he did not always take the best photos. So
I never take a bad picture.
The occasional photo that stands out like this really stands out. So that's number 3. My number 2 pick is a 62 Topps. Love his expression there, and post-swing sort of look to it. I really like this card as well. You get it's just a classic look with that wood grain border, which clearly was the inspiration then for the 87 Topps, which was, a huge set for our generation.
Middle-aged.
So, there we go. But my number 1 pick turns out to be my oldest, and I've just fallen in love with the design of this set, and that's my 55 Willie. I really love the blue background on these. I just, the simplicity of the basic color background where it's the alternating tone across, it's just really eye-pleasing for me. And, some people like the 56 better, but those ones just feel too busy for me. But love this card, and so congrats, Dan Wilson. Congrats to whoever won your big prizes, which I have missed out on, but always happy to support another channel out there, so keep on rocking it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you.
So up next, I am going to do the VR for Dan over at Old Sarge Collects, who I had the good fortune to interview just recently for the 4 Collectors channel. So if you haven't seen that interview with him, please go check that out. And I am also too late for his contest, as well as the entries have already been pulled for the winners. But he wanted us to show cards of players post-playing days. And now this is an interesting subject for me, because I felt like the cards we grew up with in the 80s as kids that were post-playing days were generally on the ugly side, like this set and others like it, where they would have, sets of legends. This is the only one I could find still from this set. I think I ended up throwing the rest away, but at some point years ago.
Is that thing ugly?
But the cards they produce now, not that I'm a modern collector, but a few folks have been kind enough to gift me some are pretty darn cool and, show images that you never had seen from other cards. This one here that's like the T202 style triple folder is pretty cool with all three. And I guess ties back to Dan Wilson there with the 600 and 700 Homer Club there in the middle with all three of those guys. But, and then, this shiny card of Willie McCovey that is, a photo you hadn't seen from his other cards. But there was one set, though, back from my childhood of, post-playing days cards that I did keep because I thought they were really cool. And, shockingly, it's actually the Circle K set that was produced in 1985 of, at the time, the top 33 home run leaders. So I believe it went all the way down to Lee May, somewhere in the 300-something homer range at that point.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Because, we're talking pre-steroids era, and there weren't a hell of a lot of 500 home run clubs members at that point. And just a sampling of these cards here is what I've got with the Babe Ruth. And if you watch some of my early videos, I used these cards as placeholders in my cases as I was building my collection before I had, real cards to put in there. Jimmy Fox there, Mel Ott, Ted Williams, and lastly, Johnny Mize. So I always like that Circle K set, great photos in them. And, it's the only set I actually kept of these, post-playing days cards of, Hall of Famers and legends. So, congrats to Dan on your channel. You're well past that 200 mark now that you had your VR for. And if you don't know Old Sarge Collects, please go check him out and give him a look. He's got an amazing collection, and he likes to collect some really interesting things that are, off the beaten path. And what I learned in interviewing him is he's got a lot of hidden big boy, big dog cards that he has not yet revealed because he feels like other people show them all the time. But, I begged him, please start showing them. Just, the occasional one-off video to go back to your eclectic ones in between. So we'll see what he does there with that. But
Thanks, Sarge.
There was one card I did find that is part of my Hall of Famer run that, as it turns out, is kind of a post-playing days card, and that would be none other than this 1935 issued Diamond Stars card of Sam Rice, as his last season was 1934. To me, it still works out because, a 35 set would then have the 34 stats. So I'm not going to replace him because it's not a playing days card. But, technically it's a post-playing days card, right? This is got also a tie-in to a third VR out in the community. And that would be for Eddie's Cardboard Chaos, who asked us to talk about a player who had to overcome adversity and, on their path to then, achieving what they did. And Mr. Rice had a pretty tough time because, as it turns out, when he originally got married at the age of 18 to a 16-year-old girl who's out in the farms in the early days. That was not an uncommon practice. In fact, my great-grandmother was married at the age of, I believe, 13 to a 19-year-old. So, it was not a scandalous thing back then, especially in farming communities. Girls did not necessarily encourage to get an education anywhere. Their job was meant to be a wife at that time period. So
that was a different era. Times have changed.
So 4 years later, in 1912, at the age of 22, at that point, his wife and had two children already at that point. He had not given up on his ultimate dream, which was to be a professional baseball player. So he ended up going a few hundred miles away from their farm to a minor league team. And within a week of being there, there was a tornado that struck, and his wife and children were visiting with his parents. And that tornado killed his wife, both his children, his mother, his two younger sisters, and his father was severely injured and died a week later in the hospital. So he went from trying to live a dream as a baseball player to 1 week later, his entire family was wiped out, which sent him reeling. He had no family. He had no
Gone were his dreams. His world was shattered.
He struggled to find purpose and meaning to live. He jumped around from jobs. By 1913, he had signed up for the Navy, and he was stationed on a battleship. And that battleship happened to be large enough where they wanted to field a baseball team that would be competing with other teams at the base that they were on, where like each ship had their own team. And he ended up getting recruited because they knew he was a good ball player. And that experience of playing with his Navy team for a year got his juices going of wanting to have a professional career in baseball. So after only a year in the Navy, he was able to get released and ended up then going to another minor league baseball team.
That he finally put his tragedy behind him.
What ended up being his good fortune is that he did really well for this minor league team and was considered one of the best players on the team. And that minor league owner happened to owe a debt to a major league owner, the owner of the Washington Senators. And as such, in order to pay off the debt, part of it included giving the Washington Senators owner a couple of his best players on his minor league team, of which then Sam Rice got the chance then for major league team exposure. And while he struggled initially, he was actually a pitcher, a relief pitcher, and after struggles with that, they converted him to an outfielder, and his career just took off. And he ended up in the Hall of Fame with an average well over 300, very close to 3,000 hits, and is immortalized in Cooperstown now. But to have that start where he associated going off to play baseball with then contributing to the death of his entire family, had to have been a mental toll that you got to think, did he ever really recover from that fully? So, no one could! But once again, and Sam Rice is my player for Eddie's Cardboard Chaos VR. So, thanks for doing that, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks again to Dan at Old Sarge Collects, as well as Dan over at Cases Loaded with Dan Wilson. So, everybody, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
Have a great day.